Good evening and welcome to the Conscious Business Institute webinar. We believe that our world is at a juncture and that we actually need to do the way we are doing business. That is why we invited you to this webinar. And what we are going to talk about in this webinar is ways how we believe that we can change the way that we are doing business and that we have tried in the past with various clients ourselves. We, in this webinar, are three people. Peter Matthys. Peter Matthys is the founder of the Conscious Business Institute. He founded it about 11 years ago. And he was a venture capitalist before he founded the Conscious Business Institute. The second person is Dr. Caroline Notebaert. She has a PhD in neuroscience, and she's the author from a book, How We Can Achieve Peak Performance in Our Brain. The third person is obviously myself. I'm Clemens Höppner. I'm an international partner of the Conscious Business Institute. I'm working as an executive coach and a group facilitator. And I also have a position as the member of the management board of an investment fund company that has been investing in the billions of euros over the last years in hedge fund strategies. What we're going to do this evening is to give you an introduction on a new approach to business and success. We will also talk about how neuroscience and conscious business fit together and what we can learn from neuroscience to do actually consciously act in business and improve our conscious business practices. And then finally, we will give a brief introduction to the Conscious Business Ambassador Program. So I hope you will enjoy this evening with us. And I would like to hand over to Peter at this point so that Peter can introduce the new approach to business and success and the curriculum that he developed over the last 10 plus years and implemented with various companies.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for coming to this webinar that we're doing here. Thanks, Clemens, for the introduction. As mentioned, I want to start right in. As a venture capitalist, when I was looking at all these companies, hundreds a year actually, I always found that most companies are run in a very dysfunctional way. And unfortunately, most of the problems that we saw in organizations is going back to personal issues. In the end, it's about relationships and about management, what we found. So when we looked at organizations, what we did is we assessed the business, we assessed the technology, we assessed the marketing, we assessed the legal things, but when it came to problems and personal things, we always felt that we are shooting from the hips. So if we want to change business, if we want to transition to a new paradigm of success, if we want to change the way we operate in organizations, we need to look at this personal topic. We believe that business as usual is not working anymore and that we need to find a different way to run organizations. One of the reasons that it's not working, we believe, is that people are increasingly overworked and getting disengaged. If you look at the Gallup study, for example, 80% of the people are not fully engaged in their job. It's only 20% of the people who like what they do. When we were talking to people inside organizations, what we often hear is if there would be a different way to work and to make money, we would follow that. The second thing is that, for example, the United Nations has coined stress, global stress, as a global epidemic. More than 40% of all illnesses are now related to workplace stress. So there's clearly something not working anymore. Plus, that we find that our world is confronting fundamental changes, whether it's political changes, socio-economic changes with the generational changes, resource crisis, for example. So the bottom line is that Harvard Business Review has stated that none of our leaders have been here before. We are all facing a situation that nobody has been exposed to before. So bottom line is that we believe that we need a new approach that we call conscious business. You can call it a different way, but we basically need to rethink the way we run organizations. And our belief is that what we need to find is, first of all, a new generation of professionals and leaders. A new generation leader who can actually help facilitate this change, who can actually be the lead wherever they are inside an organization. We believe that it's not just coming from the top, but if you look at any change in our global world throughout history, it has not come from the top. It has come from people all over the world, from individuals. So we believe that in this transition, similar things need to happen. It would be nice if the change would come from the top, but in the end, we believe that it comes from everybody inside organizations, any professional around the world. The second thing that we're lacking is a scalable step-by-step approach that assists professionals, such as yourself, or organizations in becoming more conscious, authentic, purpose-driven. When I was sitting in my office as a venture capitalist in Munich, I always wondered, isn't there a curriculum? Isn't there an approach that can help me make this transition? I traveled to shamans. I spent time in the Amazon in Peru. I did yoga retreats. But when I came back into the system on Monday morning, things didn't really change very much. So what I was looking and couldn't find at that time is a step-by-step methodology, a framework and a curriculum that would help me personally shift to a more inspiring, conscious way to do business, and that would help my organization do that. And thirdly, I believe, which I mentioned earlier already, that we are in such a juncture in our world that we really need a different way to run organizations that can change with the increasing pressure and volatility in our world and the constant change that we will be facing. If we just do that by the traditional ways, different processes, push harder, work harder, it's not going to work out. When I give keynote speeches, I often asked the managers, if your day would be a table, how full would it be? The answer I usually get is, oh my God, it's totally packed. So the 24 hours that we have are already completely packed. Now, if we have the increasing pressure, volatility, change, generational changes, all these things that are ahead of us, how is it going to fit on the table by just working more? Eventually, the table is going to be too small. So what we need is a different thinking, it's a different framework, it's a different consciousness that would allow us to increase the size of the table, which is really not possible because the day is only 24 hours, or to shift to another gear. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with the Conscious Business Institute, to provide this kind of approach that companies and individuals can benefit from. So throughout the years, we've researched a lot of organizations and asked the questions, if we look at organizations that are inspiring, that are purpose-driven, that are more conscious, maybe the Patagonias of this world, maybe the Googles to some extent, maybe SaaS software. What is different in those organizations as compared to traditional organizations? And how can we help any organization or any individual move towards that level of engagement, that level of purpose, that level of efficiency inside of organizations? And what we found is this, is that if you look at traditional organizations as compared to the more inspiring ones, we find that the inspiring ones have these 4 quadrants fulfilled, whereas the traditional organizations don't. If you look at the top left, the individual quadrant is basically meaning that we as individuals are fully present, fully engaged. We want to be there, we want to be working there, we want to be doing what we're doing. The top right quadrant means that the team is functioning very well, that there's a sense of connection and belonging. The bottom left quadrant means that we're pursuing a common purpose, that we're making a difference, that we're all here to make. And the bottom right quadrant is that we are financially sustained, because that's something we need to be as individuals as well as organizations. The problem is that if you look at today's organizations, we can find that they focus on this bottom right quadrant to secure profits and margins. Obviously, many companies today do team building exercises. Many companies have a mission on the bottom left, for example. Many companies are trying to place individuals according to their strength. But when something hits the fan, when there's a finance crisis coming, when we have to meet the profit margins that Wall Street is demanding from us, when we lose our job, we basically fall back into securing profits and margins. We basically fall back into a fear-based behavior. We need to secure our survival. And in our world, it's money, profits and margins. If you look at the more inspiring companies, as I mentioned, they, even in critical situations, are fulfilling these 4 quadrants. I give you an example. Patagonia, for example, had a rough spot in the 90s where they commissioned a study about their the detrimental impact of the materials they were using. Cotton, any kind of artificial materials, oil-based materials for fleeces, etc. And to their surprise, what they have found is that cotton, non-organic cotton, was actually by far the most pollutant fiber that they were using. To the extent that in the Central Valley in California, it was so pollutant that people had to be placed on chairs with shotguns to chase the birds away from the lakes in the Central Valley because the lakes were so poisoned and so toxic, caused by the cotton industry. At that point, Yvon Chouinard held a board meeting with his team, and he said, you know what, there is not enough cotton available in the world to serve Patagonia alone. And nevertheless, we have to shift to organic cotton. It's what we have to do. Otherwise, we lose. So what they did is they educated the cotton industry. And as a result, everything shifted over to cotton in Patagonia, and they created a loyal following and actually won financially as well as for an organization because of this change. So in this critical situations where other organizations might have focused on this bottom right quadrant here, Patagonia focused on the entire integrity of the organization, of the purpose of the organization, of the mission of the organization, and on the individual values of the organization. So if you look at this circle, and if you would imagine yourself on the top left corner here, if you would go into an organization and work according to your strength, if you could be yourself fully, and you could express your gifts and talents, top left corner, top right corner, if you can connect with people that are genuine, where you actually enjoy spending time with and maybe even share a vacation with them, where you have that sense of alignment and connection with them. On the bottom left corner, if you would create a purpose inside the organization where there is a higher goal that everybody is pursuing, that we can all make a difference. And on the bottom right corner, if you would be sustained financially, if the organization would do well. If you ask yourself, I would challenge you, there's no reason why you would want to leave that organization. Because it's not about business, it's about human behavior. If you look at those 4 quadrants, they fulfill many of our really core human behaviors. To express ourselves, to be ourselves, connection with others, making a difference, and being sustained financially. If you look at anything in your life, for example, the relationship to your spouse, you can find that these 4 quadrants need to be fulfilled. You want to be yourself, hopefully being with your spouse. You want to connect with them genuinely. You want to pursue a common purpose, maybe build a family and have children together, and you want to be sustained financially on the bottom right. So what we found is anything that we do is to fulfill these 4 quadrants. So if we can build an organization that fulfills these 4 quadrants, there's a good chance that this organization is very, very healthy and very, very thriving, and is what we call a purpose-driven conscious organization. This is a framework that we use for business, but if you ask yourself, you will find that this is actually more of an operating system, which could equally work for education, which could equally work for government, which could equally work for the way we relate with each other on a personal level. To round up, this green circle around here is the leadership paradigm that's necessary, whether you call it conscious leadership or authentic leadership or servant leadership, doesn't really matter, but it's the leadership paradigm that puts these 4 quadrants in place and maintains them as the company goes along. If you look at this paradigm here, there's one fundamental shift in thinking to make this paradigm work. And that's basically to revisit our model of success. Because what we found is that it's our model of success that's making us suffer. Let me repeat that. It's our model of success that's making us suffer. Our model of success is not designed to make us happy. Our model of success is designed to accumulate. So if you look at this left circle, which is the current model of success, you can find that it works something like this. We have to do more, we have to accumulate more stuff, and then we become somebody. So we go to university, we do more, we accumulate a degree, and then we become a doctor. or we work harder and we accumulate money and we become a CEO of an organization, for example. That's the model of thinking which we have been educated in. So what you can notice in this paradigm that it doesn't leave any room for what we really long for in life, which is the feeling experience of anything that we do. What we long for is not the stuff, not the houses, not the cars, not the job, but the feeling experience we associate with it. The sense of ease, the sense of joy, the sense of peace, the sense of adventure, for example, the sense of connection, for example. This is what we're after in life. And in this existing model of success, there is simply no room for that. It doesn't exist. So we are chasing a carrot in our culture unless we change this model of success. The second problem with this model of success is there's this accumulation part in there. And if we are 7 billion people around the planet, there's clearly a problem with that because we all have to accumulate more stuff in order to become something that we would like to be. And it's the reason why our culture is not sustainable anymore. So what can we do? We can shift to a different model of success, which is on the right-hand side. Might sound a little simplistic, but if you look at the model, it is actually very profound and also not so easy to maybe implement. This new model of success is basically to be who we authentically are, to do what our gifts inspire, and then to receive or to have what we call essence. The feeling states that we are really looking for in life. Joy, belonging, connection, abundance, which is part of the game here. The problem is that most of us have never been asked, never been educated, never been requested to think about who we really are authentically. So this entire being part has been educated out of us. Most of us have never known who we are really authentically. So that's the first thing that we have to work on, to become reconnected to who we are authentically. The second thing, the question is, if I asked you, what would be the one thing you do in the world that you are here to do? Your authentic gift, your unique gift, that if you express that, work is not work anymore. Would you know what that is? Some of you might, but oftentimes we don't. So we have to find out what this special gift, this what we call personal magic is, that if we express that, work is not work for us anymore and work becomes more like a flow. So if we know these things and then focus on the essences that we want to receive, then what we can find with our clients and also in my own experience, we step into a flow. We step into a larger flow that eases our life up tremendously. The main point I want to make here is that we really have to be the change we want to see in this world, as Gandhi says. We have to create a new consciousness. We have to come from a different thinking of running organizations. It's not something that we do in the first place. It's something who we are in the first place, and as a consequence, everything that we'll do will follow our consciousness, what we think. So this change is necessary. And with that in mind, when we work with organizations, we take them through basically 5 modules of this Conscious Business Culture and Leadership program, which each of these modules represent one of those circles elements. So when we work with individuals, we have a coaching program that we take them through these modules, or we create programs for organizations that pick from these modules and craft something, or we just work on particular elements, for example, the purpose module or the authenticity module on the top left side. From our experience, this first module is the absolute essential part. It's the foundation, because our beingness, our authenticity, who we are, determines everything. It determines how we relate to others on the team quadrant. It determines the purpose that we want to pursue and the way we want to make money. So this first module, I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail. As an example, it's basically bringing you into your authentic power. That's the first thing we try to do with anything that we work. This module follows 5 steps, which we believe are necessary to grow as individuals. These are the 5 steps to authentic power. if one of these steps is left out, we find that our growth as persons and in our success is stagnating. If we don't follow these steps, it's like one link in the chain is missing, and our personal growth, our success always stalls at some point in time. So let me take you through these 5 steps real quickly. The first step is to really understand this new model of success and to ask the question, what if you are something bigger than we think we are? It's really to remember, which is familiar, I believe, to most of you, who are we really on this planet to be? And are we just this person here, or are we part of something higher? And this mind shift obviously changes everything, because if we believe we're disconnected, we're always striving for ourselves. We have to fight, we have to push, we have to win, there's not enough, so we are always in fight mode. Once we change this mindset and we actually recognize that we are part of something bigger, we can finally relax, because there's a sense of abundance from which we are choosing, and a sense of bigger purpose from which we are choosing, which changes everything. So this mind shift obviously is the most challenging mindset to change, but that's what we are attempting to do in this first module right away. The second thing that we do is to go through this new model of success. How does it really work? How does it work in your life if you're running an organization? How does it play out in your day-to-day life if you're a leader, for example? So we help you apply this new model of success to your life, to your career, to your business. After this mind shift, we look at the second step, which is basically to understand your authenticity, who you are here to be during this lifetime. So what we usually do with individuals is we guide them through our personality assessments. We've developed a holistic personality assessment that really helps people understand and get seen for who they truly are here to be during this lifetime. We use a color test to do that, for example. The second thing that we'll do is look at your deepest drivers, which is basically the reason why you do anything in life, whether it's drinking orange juice in the morning or watch a certain movie at night. To understand these deepest drivers is really critical, because if we do anything because of that, we have to make decisions based on that. So it's really becoming an authentic decision-making tool to understand our deepest drivers. And then again, we're applying it to your day-to-day work. Step 3 looks at your magic, the thing that I addressed a little earlier. It's your unique talent that you express when you're in the flow. That when you express this talent, that work is not work anymore. Another part of our personality assessment we'll do is how you decide your authentic decision-making strategy. We're structured in different ways, and our culture often tells us that we need to make decisions in a certain way. We have to gather all this information, we have to do checklists and all these kind of things, and then we find the right decisions. Other people say, just trust your intuition. Both of it doesn't really work for many people, and if we follow these strategies, we come up with a lot of stress and problems in our life. So we have to understand what is our authentic decision-making mechanism. And lastly, what we look at step 3 is your purpose. What are you here to do during your lifetime, basically? What do you choose to do with your authenticity so that you can give direction and focus to anything you do? Step 1 to 3 is what Ken Wilber calls the spiritual growth part. Now step 4 and step 5 is what he calls the growing up part, which is necessary if we want to grow as individuals. Step 4 now looks at everything that keeps you away from living your authentic power. It's basically to look at the model of behavior that we have adopted as individuals in our culture that is the reason for any stress and any struggle in our life, which we call the model of dominance and subservience. We'll also look at your emotional system, which is basically the hidden behavioral mechanism that we display when we are out of power, when we are operating from fear, when we are operating from stress, when we are operating from fantasy, for example, so that we become conscious when we are stepping out of our authentic power and then make different decisions. This next step is step number 5, is looking at the emotional system in more detail. It's that behavioral pattern, your existential decision, how we call it, and your polarity, your behaviors that you display when you're not operating from your authentic power. What is the typical mechanism that you display over and over and over again in your life, which repeatedly calls stress and struggle? And then we look at how to change your habits, because once you've changed your thinking, now we need to look at changing your habits so that it becomes more ingrained in everything that you do or that our clients do. And lastly, we apply this first module to your career. How does it play out in your business setting? How does this new information play out for your career? How does this new information play out for your business that you have? So that's essentially the first module, which we believe is the building block for changing the way we run organizations. That's the foundation. That's the different thinking that we have to ingrain before we actually do something differently. So once we have worked with people on this first module, what we will do is then move on to the second module, which is then to look at relationships and ask the question, how can you build fulfilling, well-functioning, collaborative relationships both in your private life as well as in your organization? The reason is because your life's success is basically based on your relationships. Anything that we do is based on relationships, because ultimately the relationship to ourselves, whether it's to money, whether it's to other people, determines whether we have success in our life or not. Unfortunately, what I found in our culture is that we're really not taught to build good relationships. Look around. It's really not working well, is it? So what we will cover in this module is really principles of how people behave, to understand what are the building blocks for functioning in relationships? Why do conflicts appear? What is the foundation, the reason for any conflict, and how can we avoid that? How can we deal with that? How can we, in pressure cooker situations, when our boss comes and wants us to increase sales by 20%, for example, how can we deal with this conflict situation in a way that we remain authentic and in our power? And even more so, how can we use these kind of conflicts to build trust in a relationship? Because in the end, we build trust not through going skiing and having party times or drinking beer together, but through conflict situations. And if we avoid them, this opportunity is lost on us. So the question is, what can we do in order to use these conflict situations to improve the relationship, to build trust, to create connection and collaboration instead of distance and conflict? In the second part of this module, we look at more at teams. We look at how to build an accountability and responsibility culture. We look at how to move from competition to collaboration. We look at how you can engage teams on a deeper level, so that in the end we can go into an organization and we can build the relationships both on a personal level as well the teams that we would like to build. Now, moving on to the third module, which is building a purpose-driven culture. This is something which we are, luckily, I have to say, talking a lot to at these times with large organizations. What we're seeing in the world is that it's not us that we're on this call here. It's not individuals alone who want to make this change, but it's luckily also organizations which are really pressured to make this change. Why? Because they need to retain their talent. Why? Because the world is changing and they just want to work in a different way. The problem is when we talk to large organizations, maybe an Intel, maybe a BMW, maybe an Allianz, maybe a Siemens, maybe a Twitter, they want to change to a more inspiring culture, but they don't know how to do it. When I ask executives, how do you build a purpose-driven culture? I usually get shoulder shrugging. And most of them just come up and say, you just live it. That's not an approach which is scalable. So what we really need, we have found, is a structured approach, a manual, a guideline how to build a purpose-driven culture inside an organization. How to build a purpose-driven culture and also how to ingrain the purpose-driven culture into the DNA of the organization. So as the organization grows, maybe leaders are changing, but the culture is not getting lost. So this third module basically provides this step-by-step approach for executives to build this purpose-driven culture. It doesn't matter whether they're the CEO of an organization or whether they're working on the middle management level. Again, we believe that this change that we're pursuing here needs to come from everyone in the organization. So what we need to do is we need to empower people on every level in an organization so they can make a difference. This is what Module 3 does. It provides a methodology that anybody can use, even if their CEO or their direct bosses were operating in a different way. Module 4, to round it up, is to take it into a business setting. When we are in a business setting and the rubber hits the road and the heat is on, how do we maintain conscious decision making? How do we assure that we operate sustainable? What can we learn from other experts, from leaders that have been there, that have been in the boardroom, that have made different decisions? So Module 4 takes it into the day-to-day business life. And then finally, Module 5 provides this new leadership approach, a conscious leadership or authentic leadership, if you want to call it that way. How does this new approach to leadership work? What are the traits of these new leaders? How can we become a conscious leader and then operate in a way that we can create these 4 circles inside this module? So this is a basic overview of the Conscious Business Culture and Leadership Program. There are a couple of reasons why we want to introduce this to you. The first reason is because we get, quite frankly, quite a few calls every week from people who want to make that change. And as of right now, we weren't able to really work with them or help them along because we were focused on working with larger organizations and it's just a matter of resources. But since we believe the change needs to come from all kinds of levels, from everywhere inside an organization, we would like to expose you to this. We would like to make this available to you. We would like to say, here's an approach that you can use inside your organization. Here's an approach that you can use for yourself. Here's an approach that you can use as a coach, as a trainer, for example, if you want to create different organizations. Here's an approach that you can use as a leader to give to your employees to say, here, take this. It might help you. So we are making this program available in person, but also now in completely online videos, self-learned, or any combination thereof. That's the first reason I would like to tell you about that. The second reason is more specific because we are kicking off an ambassador program this month, actually in September. This ambassador program basically takes individuals such as yourself or executives or professionals inside organization through a facilitated version of Module 1 of our program, which is basically a self-guided online course of six course segments of about 40 to 50 videos all in all, and personal exercises, together with 7 webinars that we'll host, which helps facilitation of this ambassador program, so that we have a guideline, so that we can answer questions, so that you have a group of people that you can work with in order to make this transition or make the difference you want to make. Plus, we'll offer discussion groups among the participants so that you can build a network amongst yourselves and answer questions and help you along. This ambassador program starts September 21st and goes until December 7th. And we will guide you through this 12-week period with, again, 6 online programs that are basically the guideline for this ambassador program. Every 2 weeks, you get an online program. So you will go through this first module, get some exercises that you can fulfill for yourself, participate in a discussion group, and at the end of each segment, we will have a webinar to discuss the information, to integrate it into your work, and to answer questions. That's basically the outline of the ambassador program. I'll tell you a little bit more about it towards the end of this hour here, but before we do that, we got to move on to Caroline.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So hello to everybody. So Clemens already introduced me. I'm Caroline Notbad. I am a neuroscientist and I've worked in neuroscience or done research in neuroscience for more than 10 years. Where I found out I could not fully exploit my authentic power, so I decided to change, and about 5 years ago I founded a company that translates neuroscience, the most recent findings from neuroscience, into leadership development. And it's also in this context that I got to know the Conscious Business Institute, and where we found out that we have similar philosophy. And within this area, I also offer a few webinars on top of the Ambassador program. And it's about this program that I just like to give you a few words of explanation what I offer. So the last decade, neuroscience has received a lot more insights into very important mechanisms, such as decision-making, how you bring performance, trust, how people build trust, how people deal with change, and so on. And all these new findings, they help us much better understand how humans work, and especially how we can guide them or help them to bring a better performance. And I'm not talking about working more hours, I'm talking about how can you bring a healthy performance. So what are the topics that I offer? I offer as an add-on to the program 4 webinars where I cover 3 topics, 3 of my favorite topics. And the first one is personality. And what do I talk about, or what will you do as exercises in this webinar? We're going to look at how your personality is anchored in your brain, how one could measure that, and how this is affecting your decision making. Are you more emotional decision maker? Are you rational decision maker? How does this influence your performance, and so on? And we're also going to look at individual differences and how people usually deal with them, and how we can actually go more to a culture where we use differences between personalities as a chance to grow together, rather than as an opportunity to have a conflict about these things. There, it's important that you understand who you are yourself, because understanding who you are will also increase the chances of you using your authentic power, which is a very important part, as Petra already mentioned, of Module 1, which is in fact all about your authentic power. So this is the first topic that I will offer in the first webinar. And the second topic that I will offer, which is absolutely my favorite topic, is self-regulation. And self-regulation, for those people who do not know what self-regulation is about, this is your capacity to regulate in a healthy way your thoughts, your feelings, your impulses, and so on, so that you can actually increase your performance. Self-regulation is a topic which has received a lot of attention in the last years, because self-regulation appears to be much more important than intelligence is much more important as intelligence if you want to look at your success at work or also in your private life. And what we will do in that webinar, we're going to look at 2 types of self-regulation, cognitive ones and non-cognitive ones. The difference at the moment is not so important yet, but you will have a look at why certain self-regulation strategies that you might apply spontaneously do not always work, and which ones can always work. So this is the second webinar. The third webinar that we will organize for you is about mindfulness and the brain. Mindfulness is also one of my favorite topics, because it is one way to regulate yourself. And if you have already heard anything about mindfulness, I can assure you that in the third webinar, I will give you an absolute fresh perspective on the mindfulness and how you can practice mindfulness in your daily life. So we're not going to just look at mindfulness as meditation, but we're also going to look at, and especially look at, how you can integrate mindfulness into your daily life, so that you can actually become the person who you really are, and also use your authentic power the best you can. The fourth webinar then is more a closure webinar. There we're going to summarize everything we've worked on, and you will also have the opportunity to ask more questions and to get more exercises if you would want that. So this is just in a nutshell the 4 webinars that I'm offering as an add-on to the Ambassador program, and the dates and so on, you can find them on the website. So when these seminars will take place, I'm going to start in November, the start of November. The 8th of November will be the first webinar, and then it will be the 23rd. It will always be every 2 weeks. And I think I will start around the same time that the 5th webinar of the Ambassador program is on, so that the content is matched to each other.
I'll just say a little bit about the modules here. So basically here you have the dates of the 2 programs that we have. You can also look at the neuroscience separately, but just send us an email at info@consciousbusinessinstitute.com if you would like to do that. Right now, we've packaged them up in a way that's either the ambassador program by itself or the combination of the ambassador program together with the neuroscience part with the 4 webinars done by Carolyn. The program starts September 21st with the first webinar, with a kickoff webinar, and right after that you will get the first online module. And then spaced throughout, we'll have the webinars each, I think, on a Wednesday at the same time that we have here approximately, goes through to December 7th. If you go to the web page, which we'll send you after we're done here, you'll get a detailed outline of every date and every part of the webinar and the content of every webinar, as well as the online module. So again, basically the ambassador program is a self-guided program, online program. You can do it whenever you want to do, wherever you want to do, on each device that you have. It doesn't really matter. So it's completely self-guided and flexible, together with exercises. Then there's a discussion group after each of these modules if you're interested, and then there's a web meeting to integrate the content at a fixed date, which you'll find online. Again, if you have questions about that, please email us at info@consciousbusinessinstitute.com. The neuroscience part, as Carolyn says, starts a little bit later, so it picks up from where we are in the ambassador program, and then it's spaced out until December 14th, until the closing seminar. Again, you can find all the detailed dates as well as the content of each webinar on that web page here, the neuroscience at consciousbusinessinstitute.com. We have a pricing that's really reduced because we want to make it available to everybody who's interested in doing this and becoming part of this larger movement. When we work with organizations, our pricing is usually that for this first module, which this ambassador program covers in this case, we usually charge between $4,500 and $5,000 for an individual participation. When we put it in an online format like it is here, per seat is approximately $1,250 to $1,300. In this case, we are offering the complete package here for the ambassador program at $499 per person, so that people can take it, or maybe even give it to some of their employees if they're interested. This price will go up this Friday actually, so we have a couple more days where this price is available at $499 before it will go up to $695 on Friday until September 21st. The neuroscience part on top of that is, if you want to book it separately, it's €299 because it's we have to price it in euros. Or if you want to, let me just look that I got the prices right here. Right now it's $748 for the neuroscience plus the ambassador program, which is a normal price of about €1,650. Or if you want to do it in dollars, it's $825. Yeah, but you'll see everything on this website. Again, on Friday, this price for the neuroscience and the ambassador program will go up to about $980 or €899. So if you would like to take advantage of this lower price, please register before Friday. And also, if you would like to have some pricing options, if you want to space it out, please email us at info@consciousbusinessinstitute.com.
There's one question, Peter, I would like to take in here. You're writing you're most interested in and wonder how an ambassador would collaborate with CBI.
Yes, we have certain affiliate programs and certain affiliates around the world which we go into projects with. What we request is a couple of things. First of all, that they understand the methodology so that we actually request participation in this online program. After that, we usually have a personal conversation where we just get to know each other and see whether there's a fit, both from a professional perspective as well as from a personal perspective, obviously. And then we would just have a working session together and see, okay, now where would this individual or an organization that we partner with fit in terms of clients, and what can we crack, which nut can we crack together. That has been a very well working approach for all participants in this way. I'll give you an example. I just have a person that joined in New York City, and we are now in pitches in 3 large banking organizations in the New York City area together. So it's working very, very well this way.
So I will close it at this point in time. So thanks a lot to all of you. Have here in Germany, in Europe, a wonderful evening. If you're in the US or further to the west of us, a great day, and bye-bye.